Battle Through the Heavens, Episode 187. At the end of the previous episode, Shun-Er warns Xiaoyan that the Hall of Souls is deliberately waiting for the purifying demonic lotus flame to weaken. She highlights Hun Feng, a terrifying Hun clan prodigy with divine bloodline, notorious for ruthless combat and feared even by clan elders, and likely the next clan head. Recognizing the danger, Xiaoyan studies Hun Feng carefully, pondering his own chances in a direct confrontation. However, Xiaoyan JJ has also advanced to the second star of the Dosheng class, and your actual fighting strength far surpasses this level. This is similar to that Hun Feng. It is impossible to predict just who will be defeated if you exchange blows. Shun-Er sweetly smiled as she spoke. Xiaoyan grinned. His heart would not underestimate anyone. The members of the Hun clan were not friendly characters, yet this Hun Feng was able to become one of its top-notch experts and was even called the next clan head of the Hun clan. This was enough to indicate just how terrifying he was. Xiaoyan understood that this person would be a relatively troublesome enemy. Why is it that all of the ancient clans only dispatch a few people? Xiaoyan withdrew his focus and suddenly asked. He discovered that regardless of the Hun clan, the Gu clan, or the Yan clan, each of these clans only dispatched 3 people. Subduing the heavenly flame does not rely on a large number of people. It is best that these people of yours do not follow you in when you enter the realm. Otherwise, your losses will be unbearable. Gu Qingyang glanced at the group behind Xiaoyan. These were the elites within the Sky Mansion Alliance. They were large in numbers and possessed a strong aura, but he simply shook his head somewhat helplessly. Ugh! Xiaoyan, Yao Lao, and the others were startled upon hearing this information. That space is fraught with danger after being managed by the purifying demonic lotus flame for thousands of years. Even an elite Ban Sheng will barely be able to preserve one's life after entering it. The blue-robed Gu Nanhai laughed as he added some more information. Thank you for the reminder. Xiaoyan was quietly speechless. He quietly felt a little fortunate. They were indeed inexperienced and could not be compared with these ancient clans. If Shun-Er's group hadn't informed Xiaoyan's group, it was likely that Xiaoyan's group would have suffered serious injuries and deaths. Our ancient clans have an agreement among ourselves. Those top experts whose strength exceeds the 5th star of the Dosheng class cannot randomly intervene. Hence, the experts that have been dispatched will not exceed the 5th star of the Dosheng class, Shun-Er softly explained. No wonder. Xiaoyan came to a sudden understanding. He had been feeling a little surprised as to why the Hun clan did not dispatch any experts to deal with him after he had destroyed an important branch hall of the Hall of Souls. This was the reason why. The only person in the current Hall of Souls who caused Xiaoyan to feel fear was the chief of the Hall of Souls himself. However, this person was busy subduing the purifying demonic lotus flame and did not have time to deal with him. Hence, the Hall of Souls could only endure the losses. The purifying demonic lotus flame is extremely powerful. It will be a great help to anyone who subdues it. But it will be difficult to subdue it if one simply relies on experts below the 5th star of the Dosheng class. No wonder no one has managed to subdue the purifying demonic lotus flame for thousands of years. Xiaoyan's eyes slightly flickered. This limiting condition did not really benefit these ancient clans, but it seemed that they were willing to create trouble for others. The purifying demonic lotus flame was far too powerful. Even if they could not obtain it, they would definitely not allow others to do so. Haha. Elder Huo Yao, it is unexpected that the Yan clan has actually dispatched you this time around. While this thought lingered in Xiaoyan's heart, Gu Nanhai's eyes suddenly shifted to Huo Xuan's group, who were remaining quiet behind him. That purple-robed old man twitched his eyebrows slightly upon hearing this greeting. He immediately said, "The clan head has instructed that it is best that the purifying demonic lotus flame remains without an owner. It will be best for everyone that way." Although this elder Huo Yao's words seemed calm, Xiaoyan could still hear some irritation in them. Gu Nanhai bitterly smiled and shook his head after hearing these words. He said, "Elder Huo Yao, don't tell me that you really think that the disappearance of the Ling clan was caused by my Gu clan." Elder Huo Yao was quiet. Huo Xuan and the red-clothed lady beside him exchanged looks, but did not interfere in this matter. It is impossible to investigate this matter. However, the Gu clan and the Hun clan are the biggest suspects. It is necessary to remain cautious. Our Yan clan does not wish to share the same fate as the Ling clan." Huo Yao was quiet for a moment before he slowly opened his mouth and replied. He waved his hands after uttering those words. Finally, he turned around and hurried away. He Xuan could only helplessly spread his hands to Xiao Yan before following Huo Yao. Ugh. Gu Nanhai sighed after seeing Huo Yao leave. He continued to frown. It seems that the disappearance of the Ling clan has caused great discord to form between the ancient clans. Xiao Yan thought within his heart upon witnessing this exchange. If there was a party who was the murder between the Gu clan and the Hun clan, Xiao Yan would naturally think that the party would be from the Hun clan. The Ling clan had completely vanished without anyone realizing. No one could detect even the slightest clue. Even the many peak experts from the Gu clan were unable to discover anything beforehand. This had undoubtedly caused them to feel suspicious. After all, the only ones who could barely manage to quietly destroy the entire Ling clan were the Gu clan and the Hun clan. This matter was most likely done by the Hun clan. Their aim is to cause the few large ancient clans to be cautious against each other, making it impossible for any cooperation to occur. Shun Er's pretty eyes drifted in the direction of the Hall of Souls trio as she softly inferred, "No one will believe us without evidence." Gu Nanhai shook his head while feeling a little helpless. He waved his hand and ceased getting entangled over this topic. His eyes swept around him before he said, "The Lei clan, the Yao clan, and the Shu clan will definitely not miss the appearance of the purifying demonic lotus flame. Perhaps they will come here soon." Yao clan. Xiao Yan's eyes shifted upon hearing these words. He looked at Yao Lao and saw a complicated expression flash across Yao Lao's eyes. "Now, we should quietly wait for the best opportunity to enter the realm. After that, we can try and see if it is possible to subdue the purifying demonic lotus flame." Gu Nanhai let out a long sigh. Both of his hands were placed behind him as he lifted his head. His eyes locked onto the distorted space in the distant sky. A terrifyingly high temperature continued to spread from that tear in space. Cream, white light was appearing more frequently. In the end, the desert below had vaguely become sticky. The sand began to gradually melt. The number of sounds of rushing wind appearing around the distortion increased as this desert gradually turned into magma. More and more experts had been attracted by the unusual phenomenon. Within half an hour, many figures had appeared, crowding the sky. However, most of these people were waiting a great distance from the broken space. Only those true experts like Xiao Yan dared to approach the area within 1,000 feet of the shattered space. The Lei clan and the Shu clan among the 8 ancient clans also arrived one after another while everyone was waiting. However, they did not approach after seeing Shun Er and the chief of the Hall of Souls. Instead, they hesitated for a moment before withdrawing some distance. From the looks of it, the disappearance of the Ling clan had caused them to feel fear and caution for the Gu clan and Hun clan. In the face of this kind of reaction, Shun Er could only shake her head. They did not have any evidence to prove that the Ling clan's disappearance was caused by the Hun clan. Hence, they felt helpless because of this suspicion that had appeared out of nowhere. Time passed. Around half an hour after the Lei clan and the Sher clan arrived, the rushing sound of wind once again echoed from the horizon. There was a medicinal fragrance that was vaguely emitted from the wind. The members of the Yao clan. Xiao Yan's eyes became focused as he smelled this unique scent. He sensed Yao Lao's skin suddenly become a lot more tense. Swoosh! 3 figures flashed and appeared from the distant fluctuation within Xiao Yan's eyes. In a flash, they appeared in front of everyone. 3 unknown individuals appeared. There was a man, a woman, and an elderly person. The man was wearing a beautiful robe. His face was handsome and even contained some traces of feminine aura. His lips were a little thin, revealing an icy cold harshness. The lady beside him had long blue hair with an exquisite face, but she appeared like frost, looking like an ice beauty. The last elder was wearing an alchemist robe. Both of his hands were inserted into his sleeves. An occasionally stern glint flashed across his narrow eyes. That young man is called Yao Tian. He is the most outstanding person among the younger generation of the Yao clan. His spiritual strength has already reached the advanced heavenly state. He has once swallowed a medicinal pill that had nearly become a Tier 9 treasure pill. His actual strength is an intermediate 1-star Do Sheng, and he can be considered the most outstanding person in the Yao clan. It is rumored that he has once successfully refined a Tier 9 treasure pill. Jun softly spoke beside Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan slowly nodded. These ancient clans possessed an endless amount of resources. Even an idiot could be trained into an expert by them. Even less needed to be said of the people who possessed an extraordinary talent. Their achievements would be extremely terrifying. That lady is his younger sister, Yao Ling. Her strength might only be an initial Ban Sheng, but her spiritual strength is extraordinary. She is called the person with the highest possibility of training her soul to the D state within the Yao clan. That old man is an extremely experienced elder within the Yao clan. He is called Yao Lao's somewhat hoarse voice continued before Shun could finish speaking. Yao Wangui, he manages discipline and punishment within the Yao clan and possesses great authority. His words can decide the life and death of a member of the Yao clan. Xiaoyan was slightly startled. He looked at Yao Lao, only to see that Yao Lao's body was trembling as he stared at the old man called Yao Wangui. "Teacher," Xiaoyan softly called out. His hand also grabbed Yao Lao's arm. He could see that Yao Lao's emotions were in a bad state. "I'm fine." Yao Lao softly sighed and shook his head. "Is there a grudge between teacher and Yao Wangui?" Xiaoyan softly asked. Yao Lao slightly tightened his fist. He was quiet for a moment before he explained in a somewhat hoarse voice. Back then, he had failed to distinguish what was right from what was wrong. Just one sentence from him, and I was expelled from the clan. Xiaoyan quietly nodded. He gently patted Yao Lao's arm, and a smile immediately surfaced on his face. Murderous intent filled that smile. "It's fine. This disciple promise you that I will take this person's life." Xiaoyan J. This Yao Wangui is an initial 4-star elite Do Sheng. He is extremely strong, and it will not be easy dealing with him. Shun by the side opened her mouth and softly spoke after hearing Xiaoyan's words. "I know my limits." Xiaoyan slightly smiled. An initial 4-star Do Sheng was indeed a little troublesome for his current self to deal with. But if he was able to successfully obtain the purifying demonic lotus flame and refine it, it would be an extremely easy matter for him to kill Yao Wangui. Shun did not say anything more after hearing Xiaoyan put it this way. She was aware that Xiaoyan was usually calm and would not easily do anything where he did not have the confidence to succeed. Yao Wangui's group's appearance in the sky had naturally attracted many pairs of eyes. The Yao clan could be considered a unique ancient clan. Most of its clan members were alchemists, and all of them possessed outstanding pill refinement talent. Thus, the Yao clan created a pill refinement atmosphere. If the ancient clans appear more often in the Central Plains, the reputation of the Pill Tower would end up suffering because of the Yao clan. After all, if one were to make a true comparison, the inheritance of the Yao clan was more complete. Regardless of how one looked at it, the semi-public nature Pill Tower lagged far behind the Yao clan. However, the rules of the Yao clan were extremely severe. Only their own clan members could learn their alchemist skills. Any outsider who learned them would end up attracting their murderous intent. This rule had also limited the development of the Yao clan, but this was something that could not be helped. The ancient clans felt arrogant when it came to ordinary people. Yao Wangui's group, who had appeared in the sky, slowly swept their eyes around them. Their eyes paused on the Hall of Souls trio some distance away as they frowned. The Hun clan was the most mysterious clan among the 8 ancient clans. The remaining few clans were relatively afraid of them. If one were to compare, the Hun clan was the clan with the longest inheritance. Has the Gu clan also come? Yao Wangui's eyes shifted away from the chief of the Hall of Souls group and suddenly paused onto Shun group. His eyes moved and finally collided with Yao Lao, who was staring at him. Yao Chen, it is unexpected that someone like you, who was abandoned, has managed to reach the Do Sheng class. This really surprises me. Yao Wangui's eyes clashed with Yao Lao's eyes. He was slightly startled before he faintly smiled and made a comment. "It is all thanks to you that I have been able to preserve this old life of mine." Yao Lao's eyes were a little dark and solemn as he replied. Yao Wangui calmly smiled when he saw Yao Lao's dark and solemn eyes. Although a 1-star Do Sheng was powerful, it was still nothing in front of him. He is that abandoned person. Yao Chen, it seems that the clan once gave him an opportunity to return, but he stubbornly rejected it? That handsome man's long eyebrow was slightly lifted after hearing Yao Wangui's voice. His eyes swept over Yao Lao as a harsh arc was lifted onto his thin lips. Yao Lao rejecting the offer to return to the clan had spread throughout the clan back then. That handsome man had even coldly laughed and said that this person did not know what was good for him. It was natural that he would ridicule Yao Lao now that they had met. Haha, after roaming around outside and making a name for himself, it is natural that one would think that one is extremely capable, causing one to end up becoming arrogant. Yao Wangi slightly smiled. His voice was steady, but it was not dislikable. The somewhat unfriendly atmosphere that had suddenly appeared was detected by those experts around. Many pairs of eyes were turned over, but no one opened their mouths to say anything. The Yao clan was an ancient clan. An ordinary expert would not dare to offend them. Hence, many people merely adopted the attitude of watching a show. There would coincidentally be some liveliness before the best opportunity to enter the space. Yao Lao's body trembled slightly after hearing the soft laughter that was emitted from those two. His character was usually quite calm, but being expelled from the Yao clan back then had always been the deepest thorn in his heart. His many years of self-cultivation would completely disappear each time this thorn was pulled, especially if the one messing with his thorn was the main culprit who had caused him to leave the clan back then. His soul has only reached the advanced heavenly state after training for so many years. This talent is only ordinary, since he gave up the opportunity to return to the clan back then. There is no longer a need for the clan to remember this person in the future. Yao Tian shrugged his shoulders after seeing Yao Lao's green face. He felt that the whole situation was meaningless. He uttered one last sentence before being too lazy to continue. Yao Wangui laughed and immediately nodded. Despite training for so many years, your soul still remains at the advanced heavenly state. This name of being the top person among the Yao clan is really nothing. Xiaoyan gently patted Yao Lao's shoulder before he turned his head to look at Yao Tian. A smile appeared on his face as he softly remarked. Yao Tian and Yao Wangui were startled after hearing this person suddenly intervening. They shifted their eyes to Xiaoyan. Who do you think you are? Do you think you have the right to criticize me? Yao Tian stared at Xiaoyan. A cold arc rose on his face as he spoke. Xiaoyan, Yao Chen's disciple. Xiaoyan grinned, cupped his hands together, and replied, "Oh? You are the pill-gathering champion of the Pill Tower. Xiaoyan." The arc on Yao Tian's face immediately became deeper upon hearing this. His eyes looked up and down Xiaoyan. He spoke in an indifferent voice. The so-called pill gathering is merely a group of useless people competing. Such a gathering can only be described as nothing in my Yao clan, in terms of position within the Yao clan. Even Yao Chen does not have the qualification to speak to me in such a way. You should be lucky that Yao Chen is not a member of my Yao clan. Of course, since you cannot control your mouth, you should pay some price for the words you have uttered. That handsome face immediately turned icy, cold after the final word was uttered from Yao Tian's mouth. He suddenly stepped forward as an unusually vast and mighty spiritual strength surged. It became a 100-foot large wave with a terrifying might as it violently swept towards Xiaoyan in a wild manner. Today, I shall help Yao Chen teach you, his disciple. Xiaoyan merely shook his head as he glanced at the giant spiritual wave that came sweeping over with a rumbling sound. The smile on his face was quietly withdrawn at this moment, after which he lifted his hand in front of many pairs of eyes and gently clenched the empty space in front of him. Crack! Not even a hint of a Du-Chi fluctuation appeared as he did so. However, that majestic spiritual wave instantly collapsed in front of many pairs of stunned eyes after Xiaoyan clenched his hand. A one-star Dosheng with an advanced heavenly state soul dares to represent my teacher in teaching me. You really do not know your limits. A dense smile rose on Xiaoyan's face after he easily shattered the large spiritual wave with its shocking momentum by using just a palm. He took a step forward and clenched his fist, after which he threw a punch at Yao Tian, whose face had revealed shock. From a distance, bang! Xiaoyan threw a punch forward, and a 1,000-foot large spiritual fist was suddenly formed in the sky. There was a mysterious crystal layer covering that fist. At a glance, it looked as though it was real. An extremely powerful spiritual pressure suddenly erupted in all directions, with Xiaoyan in the middle the moment he threw his punch forward. Perfect heavenly state. Many shocking noises reverberated within the sky after this powerful spiritual pressure was felt. Numerous pairs of eyes were filled with shock as they looked at the skinny figure in the sky. They would never have imagined that Xiao Yan was able to reach the perfect heavenly state at such a young age. How can this be possible? Yao Tian's, Yao Wanggui's, and Yao Ling's expressions drastically changed at this moment. The perfect heavenly state was a level that even Yao Wangui had not achieved. How was it possible for Xiao Yan to reach this level at his age? The spiritual fist was extremely fast. The moment it was formed, it was already around 10 feet from Yao Tian. The terrifying spiritual pressure violently smashed toward Yao Tian's head. If this fist struck, it would cause Yao Tian's soul to suffer a serious injury. "Young fellow, how dare you?" Yao Wanggui's expression sank after seeing that it was impossible for Yao Tian to dodge Xiao Yan's attack. He grabbed Yao Tian and tossed him back. At the same time, Du Qi suddenly surged from his body as his fist violently smashed against that spiritual punch. Bang! Yao Wangui took a step back after the two collided, but the spiritual fist in front of him had been forcefully received by him. A 4-star Dao Sheng's strength was indeed extremely incredible. "Elder Wangui, kill this brat." Yao Tian's expression alternated between green and white as he stood back. He had not expected to not be able to last one strike in Xiao Yan's hands. Moreover, this had occurred in public. Those strange gazes cast his way were like knives that ruthlessly cut his body. Both of his eyes turned bright red as he furiously cried out, "Qi!" However, Yao Tian's furious cry had just sounded when the space in front of him fluctuated. An invisible spiritual strength was swiftly gathered. Within the blink of an eye, a figure appeared in front of him in a ghost-like fashion. That appearance was surprisingly another Xiao Yan. Spiritual avatar? Yao Tian's eyes shrank after seeing this spiritual avatar appearing in a strange fashion. The Dou Qi within his body reflexively surged out. At this moment, even Yao Wangui was unable to come to his aid. However, the spiritual avatar in front of Yao Tian coldly smiled and raised his hand as the Dou Qi spluttered out of his body. A slap was thrown before a clear sound suddenly reverberated in front of many strange looks. "Useless being. How dare you act arrogantly in front of my teacher? Treat this slap as a little lesson." Bam! Yao Tian's body stiffened as he stood in the sky. His eyes were filled with disbelief. At this moment, there was an extremely glaring blood-red handprint on his face. Traces of blood slowly flowed out of the corner of his mouth. The entire sky became completely silent at this moment. Many pairs of eyes had watched what had just occurred with great shock. Their eyes shifted toward Xiao Yan in the distance, whose lips had lifted into a smile. A chill surged within their hearts. The ancient clans were most concerned about their pride, yet Xiao Yan had ruthlessly slapped Yao Tian in front of so many people. This humiliation was a greater insult than just simply killing him. You dare strike me." The silence continued for a moment before Yao Tian finally recovered from his shock. His eyes quickly turned bright red. He glared at the spiritual avatar in front of him with crazy and savage-eyed. An earth-like brown flame suddenly surged out of his body, after which it formed a huge turtle-like object amid an earth-shaking roar. This giant turtle was covered in sharp fire thorns. Its ferocious mouth was also covered with sharp blade-like teeth. Turtle's spiritual earth flame ranked 13th on the heavenly flame ranking. It is unexpected that such a heavenly flame is actually in your hands. The face of Xiao Yan's spiritual avatar revealed a surprised expression as he watched the enormous fire turtle form above Yao Tian's head. This Yao clan did indeed possess some heavenly flames. "Go and die." Yao Tian's face became more ferocious after the fire spirit was formed. A furious roar sounded. That enormous fire spirit moved its limbs. That giant tail, which was covered with fire thorns, unceremoniously swung toward Xiao Yan's head. That sound of rushing wind immediately started to whistle. A small trick. Xiao Yan's spiritual avatar coldly laughed upon seeing attack. His body swayed, and a 10,000-foot large fire dragon formed in the sky. The dragon tail was randomly swung and struck the fire spirit, causing the flame on the turtle's body to dim. The turtle immediately emitted a cry and flew back before smashing into Yao Tian's body. Grug! Yao Tian's face paled after the fire spirit was defeated. He spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. The turtle's spiritual earth flame was merely ranked 13th. On the other hand, Xiao Yan's heavenly flame could fight against a heavenly flame ranked in the top 6 after having merged 5 types of heavenly flames. Additionally, Xiao Yan's spiritual strength far surpassed Yao Tian. It was an extremely easy matter to defeat the other party. Bastard, the fight between Xiaoyan and Yao Tian merely lasted for a split second. By the time Yao Wangui recovered, he could only watch as Yao Tian suffered a serious injury. His expression quickly changed as he let out a furious roar. With a swoosh sound, his body appeared in front of that spiritual avatar. His large hand was violently extended and the space in front of him collapsed. Xiaoyan did not intend to clash head-on with Yao Wangui. His spiritual body burst apart. It separated into waves of spiritual strength that eventually returned to Xiaoyan's body. Xiaoyan, you are seeking death. Yao Wangui suddenly lifted his head after his strike missed. His eyes were dense as he glared at Xiaoyan in the distance. Murderous intent surged within his heart. His body moved, and he appeared in front of Xiaoyan. A punch was thrown at the same time. Old ghost. You are really full of nonsense. Do you really think that you are the biggest here? Ziyan, who was beside Xiaoyan, looked a little down after seeing Yao Wangui attack again. She took a step forward and blocked Xiaoyan. Her hand was clenched as it was swung forward. A large, bright golden dragon roared and rose from her palm. It heavily collided with Yao Wangui. Bang! The clash between two elite 4-star Doushengs was extremely terrifying. The space where the two fists collided collapsed. Everything within a 1,000-foot radius turned dark, black. A powerful ripple swept apart as Yao Wangui's body flew back. His feet staggered over a dozen steps back in the sky before he managed to stabilize his body. His eyes stared at Ziyan as he spoke with a gloomy expression. Ancient Void Dragon? Ziyan took 2 to 3 steps back before stabilizing herself. In terms of a head-on clash, she had never been afraid of anyone who was the same level as her. The body of an ancient void dragon was incomparably strong, along with her powerful dragon phoenix constitution. Although her level was the same as Yao Wangui, it was not completely impossible for Ziyan to finish him off. An old fellow who is going overboard. Ziyan randomly patted her hands and coldly laughed. You. Yao Wangui became furious upon hearing her statement. His face turned green in the process. He was about to furiously yell when Yao Ling, who had been quiet, suddenly pulled him back and shook her head. Elder Wangui, this is merely a temperamental clash between young people. Given your status, you have lowered yourself by intervening. Shun also slightly smiled at this moment as she suddenly said, I think that everyone should take a step back. Your aim is likely not to come here specifically to fight with another. Why do you wish to waste your energy for no reason? Why? Does the Gu clan also intend to help this person? Yao Wangui coldly demanded. His face twitched after hearing Shun speak up for Xiaoyan. Yao Wangui, my clan's young miss is only stating facts. You should not try to be overly annoying. The blue-robed old man behind Shun frowned and spoke in a faint voice. Yao Wangui could only swing his sleeves in anger after noticing who had spoken. He was naturally acquainted with Gu Nanhai, who was stronger than him. If they choose to help Xiaoyan with Ziyan, their 3-man team would likely suffer a great loss. Hence, he could only angrily let out a cold snort. He shifted his eyes to Xiaoyan and Yao Lao before laughing in a cold voice. The both of you should not be happy. Although my Yao clan does things with a low profile, you will not end up in a good state if you attempt to jump over our heads. Xiaoyan smiled but remained non-committal. Yao Wangui, it is a tragedy that someone like you is an authority within the Yao clan. I will naturally visit the Yao clan in the future. I do not feel any attachment to the Yao clan, but I will carve the names of my parents into the clan tablet. Yao Lao's eyes glared at Yao Wangui as he slowly stated, the clan's tablet will not have any mediocre names. Forget about your parents. Even you do not have the qualification to carve your name on it. You should give up on this intention as soon as possible. Yao Wangui merely mocked Yao Lao after hearing those words. Old bastard. Do you really think that I cannot finish you off today? Xiaoyan's expression was dark and gloomy. His voice contained a killing intent which chilled one's heart. He viewed Yao Lao like a father. One of the things he could not accept in his heart was other people humiliating Yao Lao. Yet this Yao Wangui's mouth was filled with dirty words for Yao Lao. The eyes of Ziyan by the side flickered after having sensed the killing desire in Xiaoyan's heart. Both of her eyes stared at Yao Wangui. If Yao Wangui dared to utter any inappropriate word, she would immediately attack. You. Yao Wangui's face turned green after hearing Xiaoyan call him an old bastard. He was just about to angrily curse before he backed down because of Ziyan's fierce eyes. Without realizing it, their three-man team had fallen into a disadvantage today. He might be able to hold Ziyan back, but with Xiaoyan's frightening strength, it would likely not be too much of a problem for him to kill both Yao Tian and Yao Ling. The both of them were pillars of the Yao clan. He would definitely be punished after returning to the clan if anything happened to them. Yao Wangui could only swallow the curse in his mouth after having realized such a conundrum. His eyes were sinister as they swept over Xiaoyan and Yao Lao. Finally, he swung his sleeve and led both Yao Tian and Yao Ling far away. Everyone softly exhaled after watching Yao Wangui miserably withdraw. Their eyes were a little surprised as they looked at Xiaoyan's group. They had not expected an ancient clan like the Yao clan to suffer a loss in their hands. Yao Lao's body slowly relaxed the moment Yao Wangui and the other two members of the Yao clan withdrew. His expression also recovered. He gently patted Xiaoyan's shoulder and wanted to utter something, but he merely sighed in a pleased manner in the end. Back then, he had protected Xiaoyan under his wing and prevented him from being harmed. At this moment, this position had quietly changed. His heart felt a complicated feeling as he thought about this. "Teacher, I will accompany you to the Yao clan once we subdue the purifying demonic lotus flame." Xiaoyan looked at the sighing Yao Lao and softly promised. He was worried that Yao Lao would head to the Yao clan alone. Yao Lao hesitated for a moment before he smiled and nodded. His smile was warm and pleased. This farce ended when Yao Wangi's group withdrew after suffering a setback. The strength that Xiaoyan's group had displayed caught the eyes of many experts and factions, especially Ziyan. When the ancient Void Dragon tribe was powerful, it was not the least bit inferior to the Gu clan, Hun clan, or any other super factions. After the end of the farce, everyone once again placed their attention on the distant broken space. The cream, white light continued to pour out unceasingly like liquid. The desert below had turned into a creamy lava. Some bubbles occasionally rolled out from it as the bubbles charged out of many extremely hot airflows. Bang, bang. This wait once again continued for around 3 hours or so. That broken space had also expanded from dozens of feet into hundreds of feet. It was vaguely possible to hear some strange sounds being emitted from within that space. The shattered space swelled before reaching a couple of thousand feet in size. It finally came to a gradual stop, and a cream-colored light circle vaguely formed in the shattered space. All the experts present suddenly opened their eyes the moment the light circle was formed. They could sense the temperature of this area raise by 100 times as much in an instant. Shun also opened her eyes at this moment. Her pretty eyes looked at Xiaoyan as she softly said, "It is time to get moving." Her words seemed to possess a demonic strength. They had just been emitted from her mouth when the surrounding space immediately emitted the hurried sound of rushing wind. Numerous bodies with powerful auras rushed out of the distant sky with lightning-like speed. They collided with the cream-colored light circle with a whistle. Xiaoyan suddenly stood up upon seeing everyone head out. A great heat leaped within his black pupils, purifying demonic lotus flame. "I have finally waited until this day." Xiaoyan Ge. "You should ask anyone in this group of yours who does not possess the strength of a Ban Sheng to leave. Numbers are not important in trying to subdue the purifying demonic lotus flame." Shun'er turned her head and spoke to Xiaoyan after seeing many human figures rush into that shattered space like a swarm of locusts. Xiaoyan nodded. Although these elite individuals from the Alliance could be considered top-tier experts, many of them were covered in perspiration just outside of this realm. Some of them even had to unleash their Du Qi to resist the high temperature. If they were to recklessly charge into that space, less than 10 of them would make it out alive. "All of you should head back to the Alliance first and guard it well." Yao Lao turned around and cried out in a deep voice, "Understood." Upon hearing this, many experts from the Alliance immediately sighed in relief, appearing as though they had been relieved of a great burden. They hurriedly replied before withdrawing in a quick and orderly formation. Although it was somewhat regretful that they wouldn't enter the realm and catch a glimpse of the demonic flame, it was better to be regretful than to lose one's life. With their strength, they were clearly aware of their chances of survival if they were to barge into the extremely dangerous space. "Haha, brother Xiaoyan, we will enter first." Huoshen faced Xiaoyan and cupped his hands together from a short distance away. After which, he moved with Elder Huoyao, who was leading the group. Their group took the lead to hurry into that cream-white light cluster. Finally, they disappeared. We should also get moving. Xiaoyan clenched his hand and smiled in a somewhat anxious manner after seeing those experts from the ancient clans rush into the light circle, Xiaoyan Jie. It is rumored that the purifying demonic lotus flame uses a person's emotion as a source to form the demonic flame within one's body. The moment the demonic flame appears in one's body, even one's soul will be incinerated into nothing. Hence, regardless of what you see after entering the space, you must try your best to remain calm without feeling any joy or sadness. You must try to control all emotions. Otherwise, these emotions will attract the demonic flame. Xuner nodded and reminded everyone in a solemn voice. Oh? The expressions of Xiaoyan and Yao Lao changed upon hearing this rumor. The purifying demonic lotus flame was far too mysterious. Even they, as alchemists, did not really know many details about it. It was unexpected that this purifying demonic lotus flame was able to use human emotions as a seed. Such a mysterious method was indeed worthy of its demonic flame reputation. Understood. Everyone should be careful. Let's get moving. Xiaoyan slowly exhaled and ceased uttering any other unnecessary words. He waved his sleeve and his body took the lead to charge forward. He turned into a ray of light that rushed into the light circle with lightning-like speed. Xuner and the rest followed close behind him. Xiaoyan's skin suddenly became dry as he charged into the cluster of light. Passing through the light circle was an instantaneous task. After his eyes were momentarily dazzled by the light, he discovered that the surrounding space had changed. What a terrifying temperature! The first impression that the transformed space gave Xiaoyan was that it was like a furnace. His eyes swiftly swept around him, only to discover that he was currently in a mysterious space with a cream-white flames all around. Even someone like him, who had swallowed 5 types of heavenly flames, felt unusually hot in this place covered by cream-white flames. This heat was emitted by the cream-white flames. A thought passed through Xiaoyan's heart as the heavenly flame within his body slowly surged out of him before wrapping around his entire body. Only then did the heat that caused one's blood to boil significantly weaken. Is this the realm where the purifying demonic lotus flame is sealed? Where is Xuner and the rest? Xiaoyan frowned as he looked at his empty surroundings. He should have entered this realm with Xuner and the rest. Why was it that he was the only one in this place? Xiaoyan tightly knit his brow. His body was suspended in the air and did not dare to make even the slightest contact with the cream-white flames. These flames might not be the actual body of the purifying demonic lotus flame, but one should still not underestimate them. Moreover, this entire space was filled with mystery. This calmness hid a murderous intent, so it was always best to be a little careful. I should leave this place first. Xiaoyan's eyes swept around him, his toes pressed on empty space. Only then did his body shoot forward. This area made him somewhat uneasy, but first, he needed to find the others. Xiaoyan's body swiftly rushed through the sea of fire. The high temperature that saturated the space caused his skin to emit waves of piercing pain despite having the protection of his heavenly flame. Even the air in this realm was steaming. An indescribable desolation covered the entire land. Xiaoyan flew forward for nearly 10 minutes, but his expression gradually became ugly as he continued to fly. There was still no end to the sea of fire even after this 10-minute journey, and he had not come across any other human figures. It was as though this sea of fire was endless. Just how large is this realm? Could it be that we have been sent to a different area when we entered this space? However, I did not seem to feel any sign of being sent anywhere when I enter. Xiaoyan tightly knit his brows. His face was filled with his thoughts and an expression of loss. There is a voice in front. A soft voice was suddenly emitted from a short distance in front of Xiaoyan while he was thinking things over. He immediately felt a slight joy in his heart. His body moved as he hurried forward, but he had just traveled for some distance when he suddenly stopped. At this moment, there were 3 black figures standing in the air a short distance in front of him. Their eyes revealed sinister expressions that were filled with a ridicule while they looked at him, chief of the Hall of Souls. The 3 black figures were the Hall of Souls trio from outside. It was unexpected that they would actually appear in this place. Moreover, from the looks of their appearances, it seemed that they had been waiting for Xiaoyan. "Why are all of you here?" Xiaoyan demanded in a deep voice as he stared at the three of them. The Du Qi within his body quietly began to circulate as he asked, "Nothing. We are here to let you have a look at something." The chief of the Hall of Souls slightly smiled. Waves of black fog suddenly surged out of his palm. The black fog churned before turning into a somewhat illusory figure. Xiaoyan felt as though he was struck by lightning as he looked at the figure. He muttered, "Father, Xiaojan." The person who had been pulled out by the chief of the Hall of Souls was surprisingly Xiaojan. However, Xiaojan was only a spiritual body. "Yana!" Xiaojan's body trembled after hearing Xiaoyan's voice. He lifted his head and his eyes looked at the skinny young man with disbelief. "Xiaoyan, there is only one fate for opposing our Hall of Souls: the destruction of your clan." An indifferent smile was lifted on the face of the chief of the Hall of Souls. His hand slowly landed on Xiaojan's head as he said in a faint voice, "Since we are about to capture you, there is no use for him to continue living." "Stop." Xiaoyan's eyes suddenly turned blood red after hearing the chief of the Hall of Souls' voice. The chief of the Hall of Souls coldly laughed when he heard Xiaoyan's roar. He clenched his hand, and Xiaojan's soul was forcefully shattered. It turned into light particles that scattered apart before they vanished because of the terrifyingly high temperature. Xiaoyan was dull as he watched the light spots disappear. His body trembled, a terrifying murderous intent wildly swept out from deep within his heart. A strange smile was lifted on the face of the chief of the Hall of Souls after having sensed that wild murderous intent in Xiaoyan's heart. Puff, both of Xiaoyan's eyes turned blood red. His breathing became as heavy as a bull while he stared intently at the chief of the Hall of Souls. He took a step forward. However, his body stilled immediately as his foot landed. Waves of cream-white flames suddenly erupted from a countless number of pores around his body. The terrifying flame started to wildly rage within his body. Demonic flame? The sudden intense pain emitted from within Xiaoyan's body caused him to regain his sense of reasoning. His heart was immediately startled as he hurriedly lifted his head, only to realize that the Hall of Souls trio had vanished. "This is bad. I have been tricked. Everything here is an illusion to stir one's emotion." This scene caused Xiaoyan to feel startled. He suddenly recovered and finally understood the strangeness of the whole situation. The demonic flame might be powerful, but no one is in control of it. It isn't so easy to incinerate me. Xiaoyan clenched his teeth. His hand seal was rapidly changed as his new heavenly flame, which HSD been formed from the merger of the 5 types of heavenly flames, began to circulate. It wildly spread to every part of his body. The cream-white flames endured for a moment before beginning to be forced back in defeat an inch at a time because of the fierce retaliation from the heavenly flame within Xiaoyan's body. Finally, the flames were forced out of Xiaoyan's countless pores. Xiaoyan only sighed in relief after the cream-white flames were forced out of his body. He was covered in perspiration. It was fortunate that his resistance to fire was quite high and that his physical body was strong. Otherwise, this trick would have caused the meridians in his body to turn to dust. It is indeed worthy of being the demonic flame. The illusion it creates is not inferior to that of the Bodhisattva ancient tree. Xiaoyan rubbed his cold sweat away. A thought passed through his heart as the heavenly flame within his body quickly covered his eyes. After the flame surged up, the world in front of him immediately began to change. The cream-white sea of fire vanished. A cream-white fog that was around 100 feet in size replaced it. At this moment, there were dozens of people swiftly flying in the same spot within this fog. The bodies of some of these people had already been surrounded by a cream-white flames. Finally, they turned into ashes amid a miserable screech. Xiaoyan's eyes swiftly swept over this cream-white fog, after which he understood that those illusions should be caused by this mysterious fog. "Teacher," after having swept his eyes around, Xiaoyan paused them on an elderly figure a short distance in front of him. This figure was Yao Lao, but Yao Lao's face was filled with pain. Vague cream-white fire seedlings had even surfaced on his body. Clearly, this was the prelude to being incinerated by the demonic flame. Xiaoyan's heart was filled with shock as he stared at the burning cream-white flames on Yao Lao's body. He naturally understood just how difficult it was to expel the demonic flame that burned within one's body. If he didn't possess 5 types of heavenly flames, he would have ended up suffering serious injuries from the demonic flames earlier. Although Yao Lao was an elite Du Sheng, he no longer had a heavenly flame guarding his body. He would be seriously injured if the demonic flames were allowed to invade his body. Qi! Xiao Yan's body reflexively moved while his heart was feeling shocked. He appeared beside Yao Lao in a flash, after which his palm suddenly pounded against Yao Lao's back. A low cry was also suddenly emitted from his mouth. Xiao Yan had mixed a spiritual fluctuation within this cry. The sound wave that was mixed with this fluctuation was transmitted into Yao Lao's ear. It violently collided with Yao Lao's soul, causing his face to pale. His tightly shut eyes were also suddenly opened at this moment. Hu! Yao Lao, who had opened his eyes, looked at Xiao Yan beside him. He continued to pant through his mouth. A moment later, he finally wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and said, "Thus purifying demonic lotus flame is terrifying. It is unexpected that it purposefully creates illusions to stir one's emotions to attract the flames that will burn oneself. If you had not warned me earlier, I'm afraid that my fate would have not been pleasant." Xiao Yan bitterly laughed. His eyes swept around him as he said, "The fog in this place is a little strange. Let's leave this area first. Where is Ancestor Huo Yun and the rest?" Yao Lao frowned and asked in a worried voice. The demonic flame realm was far too mysterious. It was fraught with fatal danger. Even an elite Du Sheng would face a continuous tribulations upon entering it. "I looked for them earlier. There are no signs of them in this area. Jun and the rest have also disappeared." Xiao Yan shook his head and voiced his thoughts. "They are most likely with Jun Ziyan, and the rest. That group is powerful, and it should not be difficult for them to escape the illusion." Yao Lao nodded. Even if he wanted to save them, there was nothing he could do in this strange place. The only thing that he felt fortunate about was that he did not bring a large group in. Otherwise, all of them would have already perished. "Let's go." Xiao Yan waved his hand. His eyes glanced at those people still sinking into the illusion before they swiftly rushed out of the fog. He did not act out of goodness and rescue every single one of them. Most of the people here were after the purifying demonic lotus flame. They could be described as his competitors. Xiao Yan did not wish to see his kindness bring trouble for him in the future. Xiao Yan and Yao Lao escaped from the illusion and did not remain in this area. After a couple of minutes of flying, they managed to charge out of the area surrounded by fog. Xiao Yan and Yao Lao felt their bodies become a little lighter after they escaped the fog. They turned their heads and looked at the strange white fog. Xiao Yan sighed in relief while feeling some lingering fear within his heart. "Xiao Yan ge." A joyous voice was emitted from a short distance away after the two of them hurried out of the fog. Xiao Yan lifted his head and saw a large platform suspended in the air a short distance in front of him. There was a large white door at the end of the platform. At this moment, Shun Er's group was clustered on the platform. Their eyes were filled with joy as they looked at Xiao Yan and Yao Lao, who had charged out of the fog. Xiao Yan slowly landed after seeing Shun Ziyan, and the others. He exchanged glances with Yao Lao, and a flame suddenly surged into his eyes, but the area in front of him did not change. They are not an illusion. Xiao Yan only sighed in relief after seeing that nothing had changed. He smiled, asked, "Are you all right?" "We're fine." Jun Er's group swiftly hurried forward. She smiled and shook her head before exclaiming, "It is unexpected that the purifying demonic lotus flame is already able to release the nightmare heavenly fog. It looks like its strength has greatly improved over 1,000 years. Nightmare heavenly fog? Xiao Yan was startled. It is a fog that can cause a person to descend into an illusion forever. This was a unique ultimate skill of the purifying demonic lotus saint. It is rumored that the purifying demonic lotus saint once unleashed this skill and covered an entire city within it. The people in the city felt as though they had lived for a couple of centuries. Only after the fog scattered did they suddenly realize that the 100-year experience was merely a dream. Gu Nanhai faintly smiled before sighing. It is rumored that the purifying demonic lotus flame wasn't able to use this skill 1,000 years ago. It is unexpected that this time around, it seems like this trip is indeed filled with danger. Purifying demonic lotus saint, Xiao Yan recalled the light cluster after hearing this name. The light cluster should have been created by the purifying demonic lotus saint. But the thing that surprised Xiao Yan was that the light cluster, which reacted to the purifying demonic lotus flame, had become quiet after entering this realm. Where are the rest? Xiao Yan's eyes swept around everyone. He looked around, only to discover that there was no one other than them on this square. This realm is the world of the purifying demonic lotus flame. We have landed in its hands the moment we entered that crack. Where we will be delivered will depend on its intentions, Shun-Er explained. It has purposefully allowed us to come together. This realm is extremely mysterious. Earlier, I tested what I could do. If I forcefully attempted to break out of this area, even I would suffer a great backlash. This place is like an extremely tough prison. It is impossible to break it. Gu Nanhai shook his head. His eyes looked at the large, tightly shut door and said, according to what the ancestors in the clan said, the same situation also occurred back then. If we walk through the large door, we will naturally be able to see the purifying demonic lotus flame. However, there will be many obstructions behind the large door. We must overcome them if we wish to arrive at the purifying demonic lotus flame. This place has been set up by the purifying demonic lotus flame. It will likely not be easy to forcefully charge through it. Xiao Yan frowned and remarked, this is the territory of the purifying demonic lotus flame. Even we can only obey its rules before can find its actual body. Gu Nanhai faintly laughed. He was about to continue saying something when the surrounding space suddenly fluctuated. A terrifying temperature slowly appeared around them. Be careful, Gu Nanhai frowned and cried out after sensing what was happening. Of course, his reminder was unnecessary. At this moment, everyone had already become cautious. Their eyes wearily looked at the many distortions in the space around them. The realm of the demonic flame was far too mysterious. They had to be as cautious as possible. Bang bang. The space around them became more distorted before numerous crack lines appeared. Wave after wave of cream, white flames swept over from the cracks. Soon after, many human figures with a cream, white flame around their bodies came surged out from the many cracks like floodwater. In the blink of an eye, the sky had filled with these fire human figures. These human figures were covered in a flame. All of them held a long fire spear in their hands. Their emotionless eyes stared at Xiao Yan's group. Xiao Yan's eyes were filled with shock as he stared back at the many fire human figures. He was surprised to discover that these people possessed real bodies and their auras were all quite powerful. Be careful. They are all fire slave, experts who have been refined by the purifying demonic lotus flame. They are another form of a puppet. Gu Nanhai spoke in a deep voice after seeing these fire human figures appear. Roar! The tens of thousands of fire human figures let out a violent roar after Gu Nanhai's words sounded. Their bodies moved in unison as they rushed toward Xiao Yan's group from all directions. Their momentum was truly earth-shaking. Xiao Yan frowned upon seeing this human tide rush forward with a ferocious momentum. He reached out with his hand and a terrifying force spread. 100 fire human figures exploded. Shun-Er and the rest also unleashed attacks while Xiao Yan did. Everyone present was an elite Dousheng. Their attacks were naturally extremely powerful. Those fire figures were turned into nothing, a bunch at a time. But regardless of how ferocious Xiao Yan's group's attacks were, there was still an endless number of fire slaves surging out of those cracks. There was no end to this killing. It is pointless to continue this slaughter. We can only head inside. Gu Nanhai cried out in a deep voice. Xiao Yan frowned. He mused for a moment, nodded, and then said, "Let's go." Xiao Yan's toes pressed on the ground after his voice sounded. His body rushed forward. The fire slaves blocking his way exploded when they approached within 100 feet of him. The group began to easily charge through the fire human crowd. All of them threw their own palms that ruthlessly smashed onto the large door. Bang! The large door suddenly cracked apart from the combined attacks of so many experts. The endless fire slaves halted the moment the large door broke. They remained suspended in the sky, crowded together. Let's go. According to the ancestors of the clan, the demonic flame is located at the end of this demonic flame hall. Gu Nanhai cried out. Yao Lao's group immediately shifted their eyes to Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan slightly frowned. He glanced at the endless fire slaves behind him and then looked at the area behind the large door. After a momentary silence, he nodded and said, "Let's get going." Gu Nanhai also inclined his head after hearing Xiao Yan agree. His body moved, and he took the lead to head through the large door. Shun-Er and the rest followed behind him. Xiao Yan knit his brows as he looked at the many figures rushing forward. Remaining here would mean facing the endless fire slave army. It seemed that it was only possible to escape this situation by continuing on. For some unknown reason, Xiao Yan's heart vaguely felt an unease. This demonic flame realm was far too mysterious. Cream. White flames filled one's eyes within this spacious hall. Many fire-human figures stood straight, backed in this nearly 10,000-foot large square hall. They did not emit any sounds, but an extremely terrifying aura saturated the hall. That aura merged together and transformed into a large fire dragon that lingered over the heads of these fire-human figures. There was a killing intent surging from it. Xiaoyan's group studied the formation in this hall from a corner. Xiaoyan's brows were involuntarily knit. This was not the first time he had seen such a situation. Ever since they had entered that large door, Xiaoyan's group had charged through 3 halls similar to this. But the further they progressed, the fire slaves they faced became stronger. Based on the senses of Xiaoyan's group, every single one of these fire slaves in front of them possessed a Dozun strength. One Dozun was not worth mentioning in the eyes of Xiaoyan's group, but when this number increased to 10,000, even an elite Dao Sheng would have to brace their attention, especially when these fire slaves cooperated with each other perfectly. Their combined strength was extremely frightening. Elder Gu, when will we reach the end if we continue charging on like this? Xiaoyan frowned and involuntarily asked. Even though their group was quite strong, the Du Qi within their bodies would be exhausted sooner or later if they continued charging through these endless halls. The natural energy within this realm was mixed with the demon flame. No one dared to simply absorb it. Even an elite Dou Sheng would not be able to endure if one's exhaustion was greater than one's intake. We have no other choice. The demonic flame realm has become an extremely dangerous place after being managed by the purifying demonic lotus flame for thousands of years. Otherwise, others would not have failed to capture it during these thousands of years. Gu Nanhai shook his head and replied. Xiaoyan's frown deepened upon hearing this reply. But he also felt helpless. This demonic flame realm was far too strange. After charging to the next place, the previous place would strangely disappear. It seemed as though there was a large invisible hand quietly removing the places behind them, forcing them to head forward. Did those ancestors from your clan also break through all these obstacles when they had come to this place in the past? Xiaoyan asked. Yes. Is the purifying demonic lotus flame stronger 1,000 years ago, or is it stronger now? Xiaoyan's eyes flashed as he asked, Ugh. Although the purifying demonic lotus flame 1,000 years ago was not captured by anyone, it still suffered a serious injury, but 1,000 years is more than enough time for it to fully recover. Moreover, from the looks of the nightmare heavenly fog, the current purifying demonic lotus flame is stronger. Gu Nanhai hesitated for a moment before responding. So it's like this. Xiaoyan lifted his head and looked at the dome above the large hall. His eyes slightly flickered. It seems like this purifying demonic lotus flame is planning to play with us like dolls. Everyone knit their brows after hearing these words. Being played with by a heavenly flame was really something that was difficult to accept. Let's continue to walk. Xiaoyan mused for a moment, after which he gently waved his hand. His voice had regained its cool. Everyone was startled upon hearing this command. They quickly nodded as their bodies moved and attacked at the same time. The group easily crushed the fire slave army in the hall in an instant, after which all of them turned into light figures that appeared at the end of the hall in a couple of flashes, after which they destroyed another large door and entered it. They continued this bitter attempt to overcome the obstacles during this subsequent period of time, but the tasks were extremely monotonous. Each large hall had the same fire slaves. The only difference was that the strength of the fire slaves increased the further they ventured. In the last clash, even Ancestor Huo Yun had suffered some minor injuries while fighting the fire slave army. Although the rest were slightly better, their expressions had gradually become grave. Their continuous charges was little different than having clashed with many elite Dou Shengs, causing them feel exhausted. Bang! The enormous door of the hall was shattered by the expressionless Xiaoyan with a palm strike. Another large hall appeared as the stone fragments shot out. Everyone felt a weariness in their hearts the moment they saw the large hall. They did not know how long it would take for these various obstacles to come to an end, huh? Xiaoyan's eyes swept over the large hall. However, he quickly emitted a "huh" sound because he discovered that this large hall was not packed with fire slaves. Have we passed through all the obstacles? Xun also discovered the change. No. Gu Nanhai shook his head. His eyes were locked on something in the middle of the large hall. There was a somewhat skinny figure standing at that spot. Strangely enough, no flame lingered around his body. Both of his eyes were tightly shut as a mountain, like aura spread from his body. 4-star Do Sheng, Gu Nanhai's and Ziyan's bodies gently trembled at this moment. A grave expression slowly surged onto their faces. Although the two of them were also 4-star Do Shengs, that skinny figure in the hall was still a little stronger than them. "Is this also a fire slave?" Xiao Yan asked in disbelief. Just how terrifying was this purifying demonic lotus flame? It was able to turn a 4-star Dao Sheng into a fire slave. He can barely be considered a fire slave since he possesses an intelligence that belongs to him. Compared to those fire slaves that are controlled by the purifying demonic lotus flame, he possesses his own autonomy. Gu Nanhai spoke with a grave expression. "Looks like this is the final hurdle. We should be able to reach the location of the purifying demonic lotus flame once we pass through this. This won't be easy." Xiao Yan frowned as he remarked. Even with their lineup, it would not be easy to defeat a 4-star Dao Sheng. "There is no way to retreat now that we have come here." Ziyan spread her hands as she spoke to Xiao Yan, after which her pretty eyes looked to Gu Nanhai as she spoke in a somewhat lazy tone. "The two of us should attack together and finish him off as soon as possible. I am completely irritated." Gu Nanhai did not reject her suggestion. He understood that it would be difficult for him alone to deal with this skinny man. "Pay attention to the surroundings." Xiao Yan gently waved his hand as everyone quietly rushed into the hall. They separated and surrounded the skinny human figure. Ziyan and Gu Nanhai landed in front of that man. That human figure's tightly shut eyes slowly opened when everyone landed within the large hall. A pair of dark black eyes that were void of emotion were revealed, but they clearly contained an additional liveliness compared to the fire slave they had met earlier. Nevertheless, those eyes were still icy, cold. Both of his eyes merely stared at Ziyan and Gu Nanhai in front of him. Neither party spoke, but the atmosphere had become more tense. Xiao Yan only managed to get a good look at this skinny human figure after approaching him. The skinny figure was wearing ordinary clothes, and his face seemed to be completely stiff. There was no discernible expression on his face. Both of his eyes were cold and indifferent, appearing like ice that had not melted in 10,000 years. Bang! The ground of the quiet hall suddenly trembled as the skinny figure gently clenched the empty space in front of him. A strange 10-foot, large blood, red axe appeared out of nowhere. This skinny figure appeared a little comical beneath the outline of that giant axe. The people present could clearly sense the terrifying energy the skinny figure hid. "This person is really powerful." Xiao Yan's expression was grave. He would never have imagined that such an expert could be controlled by the purifying demonic lotus flame. Gu Nanhai frowned as he looked at the giant blood-colored axe. It seemed as though he was thinking of something. Both parties did not say anything unnecessary after the blood-colored axe appeared. 3 pairs of eyes glanced at each other. Wild wind suddenly blew as 3 figures brutally collided together. The earth-shaking ripple that erupted caused Xiao Yan's group to hurriedly pull back. Clang, clang. The 3 figures in the large hall flashed with dazzling speeds. Sparks continued to shoot out as the 3 figures flashed and appeared. The unusually strong hall began to crack an inch at a time. Many crack lines began to spread. Xiao Yan's group had already withdrawn by a great distance. They were in no position to interfere as the 3 elite Do Shengs exchanged blows. Just the remnant ripples caused them to feel awed, even with Ziyan and Gu Nanhai's combined attacks. That skinny figure holding the large blood axe did not give in. The large axe danced like the wind as a bloody scent spread across the hall. Although he was powerful, Ziyan and Gu Nanhai were not ordinary people either. Yi's skinny figure gradually fell into a disadvantage as the fight continued. However, his occasional retaliation still caused Ziyan and Gu Nanhai to appear a little miserable. If it was a one-on-one fight, these 2 individuals would be no match for this mysterious person. Clang! The 3 figures suddenly made contact in the middle of the large hall. A frightening sound swept apart like a huge wave. The figure with the blood axe staggered and flew backwards. His feet stomped against the ground of the large hall, forming over a dozen deep pits. Roar! That skinny figure's indifferent eyes suddenly revealed a crazy heat after being forced back. A low roar was emitted from his throat as a powerful light suddenly shot out of his brow. A symbol slowly appeared in front of everyone's eyes as the skinny person's aura suddenly soared. Xiao Yan's eyes immediately paused on this strange symbol, after which he seemed to have been struck by lightning as his face became dull. This is Xiao Clan's clan tattoo. The symbol that appeared on the person with the blood axe was the unique clan tattoo of the Xiao clan. Why did this person possess the Xiao clan's clan tattoo?